I'm Kamali, taking you through some of the things people are talking about and some of the stuff they're sharing around the world on NewsFeed today.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States!
Well, you will have heard what he said. We'll show you the best of the reactions. No one will host the Oscars, but that hasn't affected one actor who, judging by his selfies, is just so happy to be here. The art of photography returns to a city destroyed by war. And in animals doing stuff, the internet's favorite talking dog drops a new video. All right, top of the newsfeed, Sotu. It was a big night for President Trump as he spoke to US politicians for 90 minutes or so about himself and the things he's done. There were the usual applause lines and plenty of standing ovations, as is the format for these things, but we don't want to talk about what he said. We want to look at the reactions to what he said, as the internet has been doing in great detail. Here are some of the bits we picked out. Now, for many on Twitter, this was the image of the night. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, giving Trump a look of disdain and an exaggerated clap. Many memes have been written about it, most suggesting she was being sarcastic, which she was, but
we must reject the politics of revenge, resistance, and retribution, and embrace the boundless potential of cooperation, compromise, and the common good.
as you can see, it's a genuine, if over-the-top bit of applause from her after Trump's call for an end to partisan politics. Genuine and hopeful, I'd say, but her face says she knows it's not going to happen. Now, female Democrats came dressed in white, as you saw with Miss Pelosi. It was a nod to the suffragette movement and a protest against President Trump, who once admitted to assaulting women. They gave themselves a standing ovation when the president talked about the record number of women in employment.
No one has benefited more from our thriving economy than women, who have filled 58% of the newly created jobs last year. You weren't supposed to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All Americans can be proud that we have more women in the workforce than ever before. Don't sit yet. You're going to like this. And exactly 1 century after Congress passed the constitutional amendment giving women the right to vote, we also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
And the socialist Bernie Sanders was left stony-faced after Trump rejected the idea of socialism in America. The internet loved the camera's slow zoom to his face.
Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. America was founded on liberty and independence, and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free, and we will stay free.
There were also these 2 classic eye rolls from 2 2020 presidential hopefuls. Kirsten Gillibrand on the right, Kamala Harris on the left. Both so unimpressed with the words of the president, it's written all over their faces. And what about this? A kid called Joshua Trump, no relation, was invited to the SOTU. Apparently he'd been bullied because of his surname. Well, Josh, you may want to avoid school for the next few, bud. This image of you catching some serious Z's has gone seriously viral. And finally this, when Trump patted himself on the back for prison reform and introduced Alice Johnson. We'll let him tell you the rest.
Last year, I heard through friends the story of Alice Johnson. I was deeply moved. In 1997, Alice was sentenced to life in prison as a first-time nonviolent drug offender. Over the next 22 years, she became a prison minister, inspiring others to choose a better path. She had a big impact on that prison population and far beyond. Alice's story underscores the disparities and unfairness that can exist in criminal sentencing and the need to remedy this total injustice. In June, I commuted Alice's sentence. When I saw Alice's beautiful family greet her at the prison gates, hugging and kissing and crying and laughing, I knew I did something right. Alice is with us tonight, and she is a terrific woman. Terrific. Alice, please.
All right, let's take a look at some of the other things that caught our eye on social media. Now in China, the annual New Year pageant has been broadcast. As you probably know, it's the year of the pig, but people there have been pointing out that images of pigs hardly appeared. The search term, "No Pig in Year of the Pig," was blocked on Chinese social media. Now some online said it was because the Chinese state were being respectful to Muslims, while others point out that if the Chinese state was so respectful of Muslims, they would not be holding more than 1 million Chinese Uyghurs in re-education camps. R. Kelly says he's going on an international tour to Sri Lanka, New Zealand and Australia, but an Australian politician is trying to keep him out. The Mute R. Kelly movement gained further strength recently after an explosive documentary revealed the singer's abuse of women. The Australians are seeking to use legislation under the Migration Act, which can cancel a person's visa if they're deemed not to pass the character test. Now, R. Kelly has been the subject of decades of accusations, some through the courts, that he has abused women. He denies them all. And the actor Richard E. Grant is buzzing about getting an Oscar nomination some 30 or so years into a pretty decent career. So when he was at the nomination lunch, he took a bunch of blurry selfies with, it seems, anyone he could find. And the internet thinks it's all very sweet. He's up for an award for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in the movie Can You Ever Forgive Me? And the ceremony itself will not have a host for the first time in 30 years. It's because the Academy's choice, comedian Kevin Hart, was dragged on social media for some homophobic material he used nearly a decade ago. Now, Hart refused to apologise and so pulled out of presenting. The ceremony will be held on the 24th of February, and the Academy says, rather than have a host, they will highlight each of the celebrities who are giving out the trophies. Now, hate speech and fake news still proliferates much of social media, but the European Union are giving some of the big companies props for their efforts to push back against the tide.
Tech companies are making progress in the war on hate speech. The EU says social media networks have increased their ability to combat it. Sites like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and Microsoft are removing 72% of flagged content within 24 hours. That's up from 28% in 2016. The EU established a code of conduct for the internet in 2016 as a way to pressure platforms to crack down on hate speech and stop fake news influencing elections. EU statistics show that YouTube removed just over 85% of the contested content, Facebook around 82%, and Twitter 43.5%. EU officials say their plan has worked, but noted more still needs to be done.
The fight against illegal online hate speech is far from over. We have no signs that such content has decreased on social media platforms. But we do have signs that the Code of Conduct is a tool which can contribute to a robust response to the challenge.
Germany passed a law in 2017 which will see social media companies fined if content that violates German law isn't removed within 24 hours. And last month, France fined Google $57 million for violating EU data privacy rules. Critics have described legislation forcing technology companies to delete content as censorship, and some companies have pushed back. In 2018, Facebook refused to remove Holocaust denial content. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg said, while he thinks people do get it wrong, they don't do so intentionally.
All right, a spin around the world now for some other stories you need to know this Wednesday. Now, the fiancé of murdered journalist Jamal Khashoggi has released a book. Hatice Cengiz said the book was inspired by a diary she kept about him and the time they spent together. It's called Jamal Khashoggi, His Life, Struggles and Secrets. Mr. Khashoggi was murdered in the Saudi consulate in Saudi Arabia in Istanbul in October. Now, a huge hole has been discovered in a glacier in Antarctica. It's a void beneath the Thwaites Glacier and is proof the glacier is melting faster than scientists realize, which is really bad news for everyone, not least people who live in low-lying regions. The hole is 6 miles deep and 100 feet long. The father of a missionary who was killed trying to impose his religion on a remote tribe who have shunned all contact says his son was killed by extreme Christianity. John Allen Chow was killed on the North Sentinel Island by the Sentinelese. His father says he'd been a member of an evangelical church called the All Nations Family, which reportedly wants to bring the end of days and the second coming of Christ. And the egg, the most liked image on Instagram, is now being used to raise awareness about mental health.
Ooh.
Well, the egg was originally posted just to get likes, but now at least it has a good cause. Now, Daesh destroyed much of Mosul in Iraq and left the city a wasteland. Now, as peace and normality begins to return, artists there are returning to photography to express and to remember.
Each stone in this place is linked to my memory, my childhood, and to the history of our city. At the same time, I want to document what the worst terrorist organizations in history have done. They have tried and succeeded in some parts in ruining my history and my heritage, and erasing a big part of the city's memory.
I chose this job for a source of income, and with it, I can support my family. I'm currently a student, but I do this after my classes.
And in our Animals Doing Stuff, we return to one of our favourites who has a new video out. Yes, it's Beni, the talking dog, doing what it does best, asking for hamburgers. And the best part, apart from the language skills, is the way Beni licks his lips every time. I'm waiting for him to be able to ask for a Coke and fries and apple pie. And that's all from the NewsFeed team. Reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter and YouTube, and you can follow me on Instagram. Follow, subscribe and add. See you again tomorrow.